Ever wondered why some creative minds just click differently? If you're an INFJ or no one, you've likely sensed a unique depth in their artistic spirit. This video dives into how that powerful intuition and profound empathy aren't just traits, but superpowers shaping truly singular expressions. Today we're opening the door to the INFJ creative mind, a world that doesn't shout, but resonates. If you've ever looked at a painting and felt like it was quietly speaking to you, or watched a short film that left your heart buzzing for days, there's a good chance an INFJ was behind it. Their creativity is subtle, layered, and purposeful. It's less about fireworks and more about ember glow, steady, warm, and unforgettable once you feel it. And in this video, we're going to unpack how that glow is made, how INFJs move from a wordless hunch to finished art that speaks to people on a soul level. Let's start by busting a myth. INFJ creativity isn't just keeping a private journal or writing cryptic poetry at 2 a.m. Sure, a lot of INFJs write, but that's only one lane on a much wider highway. You'll find INFJs designing minimalist logos that somehow encapsulate an entire brand story in 2 lines in a circle. You'll find them composing music that never oversings but lingers, choreographing dances that shift from stillness to motion with meaning, coding clean, humane interfaces that seem to know what you need before you do, directing short films that use silence like dialogue, and even plating a meal like a narrative, bitter, sweet, bright, and warm in the exact order your feelings need. If creativity is problem-solving with beauty, INFJs bring an unusual toolset: a radar for hidden patterns, a compass for human emotion, and a quiet insistence on meaning. So where do their ideas come from? For the INFJ, creative process usually begins in the background, before anything productive happens. They're constantly scanning, watching how a barista's smile changes when a regular walks in, noticing the leftover chalk on a rainy sidewalk, hearing the way a friend's voice tightens on one particular word. They gather these small, easily missed moments and let them steep. To outsiders, it can look like procrastination. But what's happening is incubation. Their intuition, call it pattern sensing, call it long-range vision, threads those micro moments into a tapestry you can't see yet. An INFJ's best ideas rarely show up under a spotlight. They arrive like a sunrise, after a long night of quiet noticing. Then comes the aha, the spark that seems to leap across an invisible gap. One minute the idea is fog, the next it's a shape with edges. These flashes often happen when the mind is at ease, driving, showering, walking, washing dishes. The subconscious has been stitching connections, this melody from a childhood hymn, that image of a doorway from a dream, the sentence a teacher once said, and suddenly, snap, the pieces lock. If you've heard INFJs talk about downloads, that's what they mean. The idea doesn't arrive through brute force, it lands whole, with an emotional temperature and a reason to exist. That wholeness is why INFJ projects can feel so intentional so early. There's a North Star from the start. But intuition alone doesn't make the art. Here's where empathy enters like a full color palette. INFJs don't just want to express, they want to connect. They naturally imagine the viewer's heartbeat, the reader's breath, the listener's memory playing in the background. They'll ask, what will this feel like to someone who's had a hard week? Or, what hope does this scene offer someone who's grieving? This isn't people-pleasing, it's audience awareness as craft. They treat feeling as a design constraint, just like size, budget, or time. And because they're attuned to edges, where the brave meets the gentle, where sorrow meets solace, their work often carries a soft intensity. It's not trying to knock you over. It's inviting you to lean in. Under the hood, you can picture 4 gears turning together. First, the intuitive gear, that deep pattern spotting, sets direction. Then the empathic gear tunes the emotional frequency. Third, a quiet analytical gear clicks in. INFJs often refine structure obsessively, cut fat, and check logic. Finally, a sensory gear arrives at the end to ground the idea in texture, color, sound, movement, something you can feel with your senses. When these four gears mesh, you get art that's both visionary and tactile, heartfelt and well-built. Let's make this concrete. Imagine an INFJ songwriter named Maya sitting in a small bakery. She notices a gold wedding ring resting in a glass dish near the register. There's a handwritten note, found by the park bench. Every 10 minutes, the owner glances at it with this hopeful look, like maybe today's the day someone comes back. Maya doesn't pull out a notebook. She sips tea, watches a child press her nose against the display case, hears a jazz standard playing too quietly for anyone else to recognize. That night while brushing her teeth, the song arrives. It's not about the ring, it's about the feeling of waiting for someone to return, the gentle ritual of hope. Verse 1 is the bakery scene. The chorus is a line the owner might say if the owner were singing. I keep the light on anyway. By morning, the melody is simple, luminous, and you can hum it after one listen. That's the INFJ move. Take a tiny moment, distill its emotional truth, and let the art be the lantern that carries it to others. Or take an INFJ filmmaker. She's shooting a scene about forgiveness. There's no monologue, no dramatic music swell. Instead, she frames two hands folding a worn towel together. The camera lingers on the rhythm, fold, smooth, pass. The soundscape is a room quietly speaking, floorboards, a kettle, faint wind. In that ordinary motion, she lets an entire history breathe. The scene trusts you to feel the shift. That trust is an INFJ hallmark. They would rather evoke than explain, invite than insist. Even in visual design, you'll see INFJ fingerprints. They love meaningful simplicity, symbols that earn their silence. A logo might be two lines that intersect at an angle most people won't consciously notice, but the angle matches the slope of a mountain from the company's hometown, and that echo plants a feeling of home you can't quite place. In photography, you'll see them use negative space like a character, giving the subject room to speak. In choreography, an INFJ might build a sequence around a breath, the way a body expands and contracts when someone is about to say, I'm sorry. For them, details aren't decoration, details are the story. Writers, of course, are a huge INFJ tribe, and their pages often carry a quiet moral arc. They'll slip questions between the lines. What does courage look like when no one sees it? Why do we mistake numbness for safety? They don't like neat answers, but they love honest ones. And they'll write dialogue that lands like a mirror, simple words, layered meaning. Even when they journal, it isn't for the page. It's scaffolding for something they'll build later, an essay, a scene, a speech, a letter that arrives exactly when someone needs it. Now, here's an important part of INFJ creative expression: limits. Their greatest strength, the fusion of intuition and empathy, creates specific challenges. One is perfectionism. Because the idea feels pure at first, any gap between vision and execution stings. They'll revise beyond usefulness or delay sharing until the life has drained from the work. Another challenge is emotional exposure. INFJ art carries real heart. Sharing it can feel like walking into a room without armor. And then there's energy. Deep creativity requires deep focus, and INFJs can burn bright and then crash. If you're an INFJ, you probably recognize the cycle: dream big, work in solitude, give the final piece to the world, need to hide under a blanket for a week. So how do INFJs navigate these edges while honoring their superpowers? First, they thrive with constraints. Short deadlines, small canvases, limited palettes. These are not enemies, they're allies. Think, write a 300-word microstory in one sitting, design one poster in black and white only, or compose a theme using 3 chords and a found sound. Constraints channel that rich inner current into a clear riverbed so it doesn't flood the banks. Second, they benefit from ritual. A consistent start cue, lighting a candle, a 2-minute breath, the same song, tells the body, it's time to make. A consistent finish cue, a walk, a cup of tea, sending the file, tells the nervous system, you did it. Exhale. Rituals reduce decision fatigue and make creativity feel safe, repeatable, and kind. Third, INFJs need a second brain to respect their flashes. Voice memos during walks. A notes app with tags like seed, scene, image, title, and tone. A physical box where they drop little objects that sparked a feeling, ticket stubs, a pressed leaf, a photograph. Later, when it's time to build, they don't start from empty. They start from lived moments captured on purpose. Fourth, sharing in stages helps. An INFJ doesn't have to post the final version to the whole internet immediately. They can share a draft with one trusted person who gets it, someone who responds to the intention, not just the surface. That small witness bridges the leap from private to public. Many INFJs discover that once one person has truly seen the work, the fear softens. It becomes easier to let the wider world in. Collaboration deserves its own moment. INFJs make excellent creative directors because they hold a coherent vision and can read their team's emotional weather. But they also need boundaries. A clear brief allows them to stay anchored while inviting others' strengths. This short film is about keeping promises when it hurts. We'll use natural light and no dialogue for the first half. The sound of rain is a motif. That kind of clarity attracts the right partners and protects the vibe. In a team, the INFJ's best role is often curator, selecting ideas, refining tone, shepherding the heart of the project from first draft to final cut. And what about the sensory piece, the finishing layer where the work becomes touchable? Many INFJs leave this too late. Bringing the senses in earlier strengthens everything. If you're writing, imagine the smell in the room where your scene happens. Maybe that scent determines the verb you choose. If you're composing, think about texture. Do you want the piano to feel like velvet or glass? If you're designing, ask which surface your user's finger will feel through the screen: soft, firm, bouncy, still. These subtle choices make the final piece feel inevitable, like it couldn't have been any other way. Let's return to empathy as a palette. Think of feelings as colors you can mix. Hope can be pale or electric. Grief can be heavy blue or sharp gray. Trust can be warm gold or translucent amber. INFJs often paint with gradients, moving listeners from fear to courage without a jarring cut, easing readers from isolation to belonging without preaching. They know that people don't want to be pushed, they want to be accompanied. So the work walks with you. That's why INFJ art often gets labeled healing or comforting, even when it tells hard truths. It doesn't hand out slogans. It offers presence. All of this, of course, has to exist in a modern world with deadlines, algorithms, and bills. Here's the practical bridge. INFJs can align their outer process with their inner compass by packaging meaning in clear frames. Title the piece so the right audience finds it. Write descriptions that name the core feeling. A short film about staying when leaving is easier. Design thumbnails or covers that echo the emotional shape. If the story is about honesty, use clean lines and daylight. If it's about mystery, use shadows and a narrow focal point. Schedule your releases in cycles that honor your energy. A month of making, a week of sharing, a week of recovery. And remember, you don't need to chase every trend. Depth is your differentiator. If you keep delivering honest resonance, your people will find you, and stay. Now, some quick scenes of INFJ creativity across mediums, just to spark your own. A game designer builds mechanics around empathy. Players can't advance by collecting points. They advance by earning trust. A chef crafts a menu that mirrors a migration story, moving flavors from one region to another, ending with a dessert that tastes like home. A photographer creates a series called Thresholds, capturing people at doorways, arrivals, departures, pauses, and writes a single sentence under each image, nevermore. A teacher designs a classroom ritual where students write one anonymous compliment each day and tapes them to a wall of light, then later curates those lines into a poem for the graduating class. A coder builds an app that lets users record 10-second gratitude breaths and sends them to friends as a tiny pulse of presence. In each case, the spark is the same, pattern plus feeling, distilled with care. If you're an INFJ, here's a gentle permission slip. You don't have to be loud to be heard. You don't need to justify why a small detail matters to you. If it matters, it belongs. You can take your time to incubate, then commit to a finish line that respects the life of the work. You can protect your boundaries without apologizing. And you can remember that art is not only for mass approval. It's also for the one person who needed to see it today. If that person is you, that counts. And if you love an INFJ, here's how to support their creativity. Notice the quiet hours and honor them. Ask them what heart they're trying to protect in this piece and listen for the answer beneath the answer. Offer feedback that names the intention before the execution. Don't say, make it faster. Try, I hear you want this to feel like letting go. Where might the image breathe so that feeling lands? Create small, low-stakes sharing spaces, like a living room salon or a monthly, in-process night, where a handful of close friends bring rough drafts and kindness. The INFJ you love will bloom there. As we wrap, let's stitch the threads together. INFJ creativity lives in the tension between vision and care, the intuitive leap that sees a path through fog, and the empathic attention that makes that path kind for others to walk. Ideas arrive as whole atmospheres, and craft turns those atmospheres into songs, pages, designs, films, meals, movements. The stereotype of the solitary journaler misses the real story. INFJs aren't hiding from the world. They're listening to it, distilling it, and offering it back with the edges sanded, the truth intact, and the hope still shining. If this exploration lit up something in you, consider what tiny moment you might turn into a lantern this week. Capture one image that keeps returning. Draft one paragraph that lets a quiet feeling speak. Hum a melody into your phone at a stoplight. Make something small, honest, and yours. That's the INFJ way, not performance but presence. Not noise but signal. And when you're ready, share it. Someone out there is waiting for exactly the kind of light only you can make. If this resonated, I'd love to keep traveling with you through the creative mind. Tap like if this gave you ideas, subscribe for more deep dives into personality and creativity, and drop a comment telling us the smallest moment that inspired your last project. Your story might be the spark for someone else's aha. Until next time, keep listening for the quiet patterns, and keep making art that feels like home.